Mysterious gaps in Nancy's disappearance timeline raise chilling questions about her fate.
Of Good Shepherd Church, which is a New York-based church service, which the one and only Savannah Guthrie and her children attend every single week. We can use our lawn chair detective skills to deduce that the only reason, these folks in Pima County were gathering to watch this sermon from Manhattan was because the mother of Savannah Guthrie was part of that gathering. Now, it being winter is important because that means New York at this time is a full 3 hours ahead of Arizona's Mountain Standard Time, which rightfully so doesn't practice the tomfoolery of daylight savings time. So Savannah Guthrie attends in person the Good Shepherd Church, and that starts at 9:30 a.m. every Sunday. That service is then video recorded, and once it wraps up, it is streamed over the internet for everyone else in the country at 11:15 a.m. Eastern. Okay, the time frame of this service is important. So if it begins at 9:30 and the streams for everyone at 11:15, we can safely assume that the entire service is about 60 to 90 minutes. So moving to Pima County, every week when Nancy and her church friends would start watching the stream, if we subtract those 3 hours from when it streams in New York, then it would be 8:15 in Arizona. So whoever was holding the gathering, that person could reasonably expect people to start showing up at around 8 a.m. So let's go ahead and...
Well, guys, I didn't even think about that, right? What a mess. I didn't even think about the fact that it would be 8:15 in the morning in order to be there on time, right? You just assume church is at, 10, 11 o'clock? Yeah, right? That's what you assume. And listen, I don't know if he's going back to school. It is summertime, but summer's almost over. The school goes back in 2 weeks from now. So is he going to show up? I don't know. I don't think it'd be a good idea to take off, but we don't know. I don't think Sheriff Nanos ever said, or anybody ever said to them, you can't leave the area.
Place ourselves in Nancy's church friends' shoes. 8 a.m. rolls around and Nancy is not yet there. Okay. No cause for concern for, I will say, no matter how diligent a person is in terms of time, everyone is late now and again. So that stream starts at 8:15 a.m. And let's just say more than a few friends are disappointed that Nancy is going to miss the beginning of the service. And I think we can assume that if the ladies already haven't, they would then give Nancy a call and they would get no answer, right? Maybe she's rushing over at the moment and can't pick up. Now, if we are to consider that the service...
Yeah, it was live streamed. They had been live streaming it since COVID, and Nancy always would go to her friend's house and watch it. They'd watch it all together, like the picture that you saw. All right. Was she expecting? She wasn't driving to church, but I don't know if she was driving to her friend's house or not. We don't have the complete story, and they're not talking. The two people that were supposed to have taken care of her, dropped her off that night, allegedly, and then made sure that she was okay for church the next day or whatever, aren't talking.
This is more likely than not an hour and some change, right? By 9 a.m., the stream is more than halfway done. And I can only imagine that Nancy's closest friends would call her again, okay, to no avail. Now, if we know that our friend, who is 84 years old, has health conditions, she has a pacemaker, this would be a cause for alarm already, don't you think? Now, here's the problem with that line of thinking. Something that I guess I never thought to question, but I'm not sure we were ever given an actual time when Nancy's church friends called Annie. Right? I think Sheriff Nanos touched on that subject in those early press conferences.
Well, here's the thing is that maybe Tommaso did take her home, but they don't answer that. And the two people to see her alive last, she was with A&T. So even if it was Tommaso that took her home or not, she was with her daughter at her daughter's house with Tommaso. It wasn't just like he was the only one with her. All right. All right. Hey, Amethyst.
But he spoke in a more open-ended way without any specific timestamps.
9:45 in the evening, her children left her off. At some time earlier that morning, they got a call from somebody at the church who said, hey, your mom's not here.
I think we have the first truly troubling gap in the timeline, unless you guys can prove me wrong. Tell me something that I missed. Tell me that he did give a time. Show me where it is that he says they called Annie at 11 a.m. Because here's the problem, right? if the church stream is over by 9:30 a.m.,
Yeah, then
and if
what's
Nancy's
11?
friends are wondering where she could be, then wouldn't it be a perfect time?
Guys, that's a huge gap. Just saying. I thought it was only an hour and 3 minutes. That's the longest I've heard, but that's a much bigger gap if they didn't go there till 11 o'clock and the church services were over by 9:30 in the morning. So it took Annie and Tommaso an hour and a half to, or maybe let's say the friends just said, hey, you know what? Let's give her a half an hour. They're probably late. They're probably driving over there, you know. But then you still got another additional hour on top of that for them to even respond. It only takes 10 minutes for them to get there. So what? Yeah, that's a huge gap.
To call Annie, just to ask her if Nancy was with her. Did she forget to come to this gathering? Wouldn't that be the time that, family gets that call? But it's only 9:30 a.m.
Right?
Even if we move that back with some delay to 10 a.m., that is still a massive gap to the confirmed 12:03 when the police are finally called. So please,
that's 2 hours.
I want to be wrong about this. I encourage everyone to try to find the hole in the logic I just presented here. I feel I could be missing something, or did family really wait 2 hours before calling the police? Or did Nancy's church friends wait a full hour and a half? If that's the case, then any of us could see what kind of issue we might have with a large 2-hour gap of not being able to reach your mom, who is only 4 miles away. Okay, we all have our biases, right? In a case that has been going on for months now, 5 months, but you have to admit, even if you...
Hey guys, welcome Regina76 to the official crime crew. Welcome, thank you. Come on in.
Throw those biases out the window. 2 hours of not being able to contact your elderly mother should feel like a heart-wrenching, insurmountable amount of time. We can't even get there fast enough if it was 10 seconds. Even if it was 1 hour, okay? That still sounds pretty puzzling. Now, let's go ahead and look at the account from Savannah directly, from that Hodakapi interview, okay? So she says that before Annie called her, she was having...
Yeah, I already had the time gap factored into the wait of calling Savannah. The wait for calling Savannah was already an hour or over for them to call her and say, hey, we already called 911. We looked around the back. The doors were wide open. The details that Annie gave to her sister Savannah were like, wait, why are you saying that? You didn't tell her, hey, we came into the house and we didn't see mom. The back doors were open. There's blood on the porch. There was no kind of urgency ever. So there's no urgency even in that. Even in this, we're looking. There's a problem, guys.
A beautiful, fun night together at Carson Daly's home, and I feel we can safely imagine Savannah and her kids, hanging out with Carson Daly's family and his kids. They most likely had dinner together, and the whole night, I'll say it lasted about 2 hours. Just a relaxing evening with good company, right? How does 2 hours sound to you guys, right? It seems reasonable for a fun night. Okay, the key description that Savannah gives us is night. So if we know that sunset in New York is 5:13 p.m. on that day, it's more than within reason to say that Savannah was home at 7:30 p.m. Now, honestly, to me, that sounds conservative. But if we could all agree on that, that means that it's 4:30 in Pima County, whichin lies the next puzzling time gap. Why?
That's interesting because I did not see another time gap, but there hasn't really been an official timeline either. The timeline has changed significantly since the beginning of this. And that's because Nanos is not being descriptive. It's just word salad. He's telling us whatever he thinks we want to hear. And he's not even telling us that. He's going around it.
Why did it take Annie more than 4 hours from the time the police arrive at her house, which is said to be at about 12:15, okay? 4 hours to inform her sister about their mom being missing. I feel there is no way that Annie and Tommaso, at this point in the case, okay, they're at Nancy's house with police everywhere, that A&T don't already know that the Nest camera is missing and that there is blood on the porch, right? But Annie only tells Savannah that the back doors were propped open, leading Savannah to believe that it is a possibility that a medical emergency happened overnight and the paramedics had to prop open their mother's door so that they can gurney her out, going as far as to allow Savannah to call the hospitals herself with the knowledge that the scene at their mother's house.
But you got to remember, they said they had already done that. They had already called people, called around, they went outside, looked around, right? Exactly. An 84-year-old woman, every minute is valuable. I mean, you saw a picture of Nancy, you know, a little like prior to when she passed or when she was killed, whatever happened. She looked pretty fragile, guys.
House was a cause for grave concerns, to take the words of Nanos, okay? We also know that from police scanners uncovered by Juanita Araming, that the police had already called the hospitals. Now, if Savannah was given that bit of information that the police had already called, would she still have called? Now, of course, however suspicious as this looks, I actually do think I have an idea why Annie behaved this way.
Okay, tell us, please. Tell us, because there's a video that Coffin Doffer did, and it's like why everyone thinks A&T are guilty of this. Well, number one, they were the last people to be with her. They were the first people to be at the house when she was missing. So there's two things right there. Last to be with her, biggest motive. So there's three things, right? Last with her, last at her house before, and the biggest financial motive.
Why it might be so. So let's look at this from a loving family member's perspective first. If we take the roughly 4 hours it took Annie from discovering her mother missing in the morning to calling her sister way in the afternoon, if we're looking at it through the lens of a genuinely bewildered loved one, then I would say that Annie was just trying to protect Savannah, right? To protect her little sister from the truth for as long as she could, okay? The likely scenario that their mother...
I'm not buying that at all, but hey, let's talk about a loving family member. Yeah, you're right. She should have never been living at home. It was a beautiful house, but it's too much for a fragile 84-year-old woman. She was fragile, guys, all right? So she had randomly popped and picked her mom up for lunch, right? Make it make sense. It doesn't. Her eyes,
was physically removed from her home and was bleeding was something she could not yet bear to tell Savannah or Cameron just yet, right? And if we look at it from that angle, hey, I personally can see why Annie would do what she did, because she wanted to exhaust all the possibilities, right? At least have some answers, maybe even find their mother before she had to break the news, you know, to her siblings.